There's a significant winter storm developing right now across the northern part of the country, and I need to tell you about what's heading our way this weekend. The National Weather Service just put out winter storm warnings for 13 states. That's a lot of territory, and there's more to this story than you might expect. Now, winter storms aren't unusual this time of year, but this one has some aspects that really stand out. Let me explain what makes this different. We're looking at heavy snow for Montana, possibly over a foot in some spots, and ice storm conditions developing in the Dakotas. In just a few minutes, I'll break down exactly what each part of the country can expect, including some pretty serious cold coming behind this storm. I'm Michael Thompson, and it's Friday, December 12th, 2025. I've been forecasting weather for more than 20 years, and there are some things about this system that have my attention. Look, winter storms happen every year. That's just part of living in this part of the world. But the scope of this one is what makes it noteworthy. As I'm talking to you right now, snow is falling in central Montana. And we're not talking about light snow. This is the heavy, wet stuff that piles up quickly. What started as scattered snow showers yesterday has really organized overnight. The storm is gaining strength as it moves along. Here's what caught my eye when I looked at the forecast models this morning. This system is going to affect about 85 million people over the next 2 days. That's a path from the Rocky Mountains clear over to the East Coast, touching 18 different states in some way. Think about that for a minute. It's not often you see one weather system have an impact across such a wide area. When the Weather Service puts out winter storm warnings, they're telling you to expect conditions that will make travel difficult and affect your daily routine. What concerns me most about this storm is that it's not just one thing. We've got heavy snow, freezing rain, strong winds, and bitter cold all bundled together. Right now, parts of South Dakota are under ice storm warnings. If you've never experienced an ice storm, let me tell you, they can be really dangerous. Before I get into that, though, let me share something that shows you how widespread this is going to be. Airlines are already canceling flights. Yesterday alone, over 400 flights were canceled in the affected areas. By Sunday evening, that number could reach 2,000 or more. Now, there's more to this story, and it gets more complicated as the storm moves east through the day. This storm isn't one of those fast-moving systems that blows through in a few hours. It's taking its time, and that means more snow piling up. In some areas, we could see snow coming down at 1 to 2 inches per hour. That's heavy enough that it's hard to keep roads clear. I talked with transportation folks in Iowa earlier, and they're getting extra crews ready for what they expect to be a tough weekend. The timing isn't great either. This hits on Saturday when people are out doing weekend activities, shopping, visiting family. There's something else about this storm that meteorologists are watching closely. The temperature setup is creating problems. We've got cold air up high, but it's a bit warmer near the ground in some places. That's a recipe for freezing rain. Freezing rain might be the most dangerous weather we deal with in winter. It makes everything slippery and can knock out power. Even just a thin coating of ice makes driving treacherous. When you get a 1/4 inch, power lines start coming down. Some areas might see 1/2 inch. South Dakota officials are taking this seriously enough that they've opened their Emergency Operations Center. But here's what happens after this storm passes. We get hit with some really cold air. And I mean cold. Temperatures could drop 30 to 40 degrees from where they are now. That change happened Sunday into Monday. Minneapolis could see 15 below zero with wind chills near 40 below. In Chicago, we're talking single digits with wind chills in the -20s. That's cold enough to cause frostbite in just a few minutes if you're not dressed properly. Before we get to that cold snap, though, we need to get through this snowstorm, and different parts of the country are going to see different things. So let me break it down region by region, because knowing what's coming to your area can help you prepare. Northern Rockies. Starting with Montana and northern Wyoming, you're already dealing with this storm. Billings has picked up 6 inches in the last 12 hours. The Absaroka and Beartooth Mountains are looking at 12 to 16 inches by Saturday evening, with winds gusting up to 70 miles per hour. That combination creates whiteout conditions. If you're in this area, please don't attempt travel unless it's absolutely essential. Glacier National Park and the surrounding areas could see localized amounts approaching 20 inches. That's enough to close mountain passes for days. Northern Plains. The Dakotas and western Minnesota are facing a complex mix of precipitation types that makes this particularly treacherous. Fargo is already seeing a mixture of snow and sleet, with ice beginning to accumulate on power lines and tree branches. Bismarck could receive 8 to 12 inches of snow, but the real concern is the ice storm warning for central and eastern South Dakota. Sioux Falls is expecting up to a quarter-inch of ice accumulation. That's enough to knock out power to hundreds of thousands of people. Western Minnesota, including Duluth, is looking at 6 to 10 inches of snow, with winds gusting to 45 miles per hour. Midwest Heartland. This is where the storm really intensifies as it taps into moisture from the south. Des Moines is in for a significant snowfall. We're talking 8 to 14 inches by Sunday morning. The heaviest snow falls Saturday afternoon and evening. Iowa City and Cedar Rapids are expecting 10 to 15 inches. The University of Iowa has already canceled all weekend activities. Chicago's forecast is particularly interesting because lake effect enhancement could boost totals significantly on the south and east sides of the city. The National Weather Service Chicago office is calling for 6 to 10 inches, but some suburbs could see 12 to 15 inches. Milwaukee is looking at similar amounts, 7 to 12 inches, with the heaviest snow Saturday night into early Sunday morning. Ohiovallley. As the storm moves southeast, it maintains its strength longer than originally forecast. Indianapolis is expecting 6 to 9 inches, but there's a complication. Temperatures will be right at the freezing mark, so we could see some mixing. Cincinnati and Louisville are looking at 4 to 8 inches, with the snow beginning Saturday afternoon and continuing into Sunday morning. Columbus, Toledo, Cleveland, and Dayton are all in the 6 to 10 inch range, with lake effect enhancement possible along Lake Erie. Appalachian region. The mountains will see orographic enhancement, meaning the hills and ridges will squeeze out extra moisture. Charleston, West Virginia could see 8 to 12 inches, while higher elevations might reach 15 inches. The concern here isn't just the snow amounts, but the rapid temperature drop that follows, which could create dangerous ice conditions. Northeast Corridor. By the time this system reaches the I-95 corridor, it will be weakening, but still impactful. Philadelphia is looking at 3 to 6 inches Saturday night into Sunday morning. Not a massive storm, but enough to impact travel. New York City could see 2 to 5 inches, with higher amounts possible north and west of the city. Boston is on the northern edge of this system, expecting 1 to 4 inches, but lake effect snow from the Great Lakes could enhance totals in western areas. Now, here's what really concerns me about this entire setup. It's not just about the snow. The Arctic air mass following this storm is severe. And this is where the story takes a dramatic turn. Because what happens Sunday morning will affect everyone in these regions differently. The temperature crash begins Saturday night, and by Sunday morning, we're looking at some of the coldest conditions of the winter season so far. Wind chill values across the upper Midwest will range from minus 30 to minus 45 degrees. That's life-threatening cold if you're caught unprepared. Now, let me share something that might surprise you about how this Arctic blast develops. It's not gradual. It's like someone flipping a switch. Saturday evening in Minneapolis, it might be 20 degrees. By Sunday morning, it could be minus 15. That's a 35-degree drop in just 12 hours. The reason this happens so quickly is that we're dealing with what meteorologists call a dry slot. Extremely cold, dry air rushing in behind the storm. This Arctic air originates from northern Canada, where temperatures have been well below zero for weeks. It's like opening a freezer door. Don't miss this critical information. The combination of fresh snow cover and clear skies Sunday creates perfect radiational cooling. What that means is temperatures will continue dropping even after the sun comes up Sunday morning. That's unusual and dangerous. Power companies across the region are already pre-positioning repair crews because extreme cold can cause equipment failures. Natural gas demand is expected to spike to levels we typically don't see until January, putting strain on heating systems. For anyone with older heating systems or inadequate insulation, this could become a serious problem very quickly. Now, Here's where this story gets even more interesting. While all this winter chaos is happening, there's a completely different weather pattern developing. The long-range forecast shows something that seems almost impossible given what we're experiencing this weekend. By late December, we're looking at a major pattern flip that could bring exceptionally warm weather to much of the country. I'm talking about temperatures 20 to 30 degrees above normal for Christmas week. In some areas, we could see records broken on the warm side. How does that happen? Well, the same jet stream pattern that's allowing Arctic air to plunge south this weekend will eventually reverse. A massive ridge of high pressure will develop over the western United States and gradually expand eastward. This ridge will pump warm, moist air northward from the Gulf of Mexico, creating what meteorologists call a torch pattern. Chicago could see temperatures in the 50s on Christmas Day. Minneapolis might reach the 40s. That's remarkable for late December. But here's what most people don't realize about these dramatic pattern changes. They create their own set of problems. All that snow we're getting this weekend, it's going to melt rapidly during the Christmas week warm-up, potentially causing flooding. Urban areas with poor drainage systems need to start thinking about this now. Rapid snowmelt combined with rain can overwhelm storm sewers. And there's another aspect to this pattern flip that I find fascinating from a meteorological standpoint. The atmospheric river activity in the Pacific Northwest is connected to our weather patterns here in the central and eastern United States. Seattle and Portland are dealing with major flooding right now. Rivers are reaching levels not seen in years. That heavy precipitation in the west is part of the same large-scale pattern that's driving our winter storm and the Arctic blast. It's all connected, and understanding these connections helps us predict what's coming next. Now, let me address something that's been on my mind as I've studied this evolving pattern. What does this mean for January and February? The Christmas warm-up will be nice for holiday travel, but don't put your snow shovels away just yet. January typically sees a return to more normal winter patterns, and with all that warm air moving north, we could see some significant storm development. When warm, moist air collides with cold air masses, that's when you get your most intense winter storms. The Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and Northeast need to be particularly aware of this potential for late January and February. We could be looking at the kind of nor'easters and lake effect events that produce 18 to 24 inches of snow. But let's get back to the immediate situation, because there are some practical steps everyone in the affected areas needs to take right now. First, if you haven't already, make sure your emergency supplies are ready. We're talking about potential power outages and travel disruptions. Stock up on non-perishable food, water, flashlights, batteries, and any medications you need. Plan for at least 72 hours of supply. For your vehicle, make sure you have a full tank of gas, winter emergency kit, blankets, and some high-energy snacks. If you absolutely must travel, tell someone your route and expected arrival time. Carry a fully charged cell phone and car charger. Now, here's something specific about this Arctic blast that people often overlook: protecting your home's pipes. With temperatures potentially reaching minus 20 to minus 30 degrees, any exposed plumbing could freeze and burst. Let faucets drip slightly, open cabinet doors under sinks, and know where your main water shutoff is located. Space heaters can be helpful, but they're also dangerous. Never leave them unattended, and make sure they're placed away from anything flammable. Carbon monoxide poisoning spikes during winter storms as people use generators and heating devices improperly. Never use a generator inside your home or garage. Keep it at least 20 feet away from windows and doors. Don't miss this important point about timing. The most dangerous period will be Saturday evening through Sunday morning. That's when the heavy snow combines with the beginning of the temperature crash. Visibility will be near zero in many areas. State transportation departments are already treating roads and positioning equipment, but they can't be everywhere at once. If you see a snowplow, give them plenty of room. They're moving slowly for good reason, and they have limited visibility too. Airlines are already issuing travel waivers for affected airports. If you're flying this weekend, check your flight status frequently. Amtrak has also announced potential delays and cancellations for routes through the Midwest and Northeast. Now, let me talk about something that doesn't get enough attention during winter storms: the psychological impact. Being stuck indoors for extended periods, especially when combined with power outages and cold temperatures, can be stressful. Check on elderly neighbors and family members. Make sure they have heat, food, and medication. Sometimes a simple phone call makes all the difference. Social media can be helpful for staying connected, but also be aware of misinformation about the storm's track or intensity. Stick to official sources, the National Weather Service, your local emergency management office, and trusted local meteorologist. Here's something I find remarkable about this particular storm system: the precision with which we can track it today compared to even 20 years ago. Satellite technology, computer models, and ground-based observations give us an incredibly detailed picture of what's happening. We can see the storm's internal structure, track its movement hour by hour, and predict snow accumulations down to specific neighborhoods. But even with all this technology, nature still has ways of surprising us. Local variations in terrain, lake effects, and atmospheric instabilities can change things quickly. That's why it's so important to stay flexible with your plans and keep monitoring updated forecasts throughout the weekend. As we move through this storm and into the Arctic blast, I'll be tracking every development and providing updates as conditions change. The meteorological setup for early next week is particularly interesting because of how the Arctic air interacts with the snow cover. Fresh snow is an excellent insulator and reflector. It prevents the ground from absorbing heat and reflects sunlight back to space. This creates what we call a positive feedback loop. The snow helps keep temperatures colder, which preserves the snow longer. Areas that receive significant snow from this storm could stay below freezing for several days, even with sunny skies. Don't miss what happens after this Arctic blast, because the pattern change I mentioned earlier has some surprising implications. The transition from extreme cold to unusual warmth will happen faster than most people realize, probably within 7 to 10 days. When meteorologists see patterns changing this rapidly, it often signals broader shifts in global circulation. The El Niño Southern Oscillation, Arctic Oscillation, and Pacific Decadal Oscillation all influence our winter weather patterns. Right now, we're in a transitional phase where these larger climate patterns are shifting, creating more volatile weather. This is why we're seeing such extreme swings, from severe winter storms to unusually warm periods and back again. For the remainder of winter, expect this volatility to continue. It's not just about having warmer or colder than normal winters anymore. We're increasingly seeing winters with extreme events on both sides, severe cold snaps and unusual warm spells, sometimes just days apart. This creates new challenges for everything from infrastructure planning to agricultural decisions to personal preparedness. The key is staying informed and remaining flexible. What worked for winter preparedness 20 years ago might not be sufficient today. Now, as we wrap up today's forecast, I want to leave you with some thoughts about what to watch for over the next several days. Saturday will be the most active day for snowfall across the Midwest. Pay attention to snowfall rates, especially during the afternoon and evening. Sunday morning brings the coldest temperatures, but it's also when the storm will be moving away from most areas. Sunday afternoon and evening should see improvements in most locations, though lake effect snow could continue in traditional areas. Monday will still be very cold, but winds should diminish, making the cold more tolerable, even though temperatures remain well below normal. By Tuesday and Wednesday, we start to see the first signs of the pattern change that will dominate the late December weather. Temperatures will begin a gradual rise, though it will still feel quite cold compared to what's coming later in the month. The really dramatic warming doesn't begin until around December 20th. But once it starts, it will be unmistakable. This brings me to something I want to discuss in tomorrow's forecast: the implications of this rapid pattern change for holiday travel. Christmas week could see some of the most favorable travel weather we've had all winter, but the transition period might be challenging. When weather patterns change this dramatically, it often comes with a period of unsettled conditions: rain, fog, and potential flooding. All that snow from this weekend has to go somewhere when temperatures climb into the 40s and 50s. Don't miss tomorrow's detailed analysis, where I'll break down the Christmas week forecast and explain what this pattern change means for January weather. We'll also dive deeper into the long-range outlook and discuss why this winter is shaping up to be more variable than we've seen in recent years. I'll have specific timing for when the warm-up begins in each region and what it means for everything from ice fishing to holiday decorating. Plus, I want to share some fascinating insights about how this weather pattern connects to global circulation changes we're tracking. For now, stay safe during this weekend's winter storm. Prepare for Sunday's Arctic blast, and remember, winter weather can be dangerous, but with proper preparation, we can all get through it safely. Keep checking back for updates as conditions develop, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have specific questions about your area. Until tomorrow, this is Michael Thompson reminding you to stay warm, stay prepared, and stay tuned for what promises to be a fascinating transition in our weather patterns.